Let's go to the other quarterback, though, in this game, because obviously Patrick Mahomes, they could have made all the adjustments in the world. They were overmatched in that one. But Jalen Hurts had a lot of critics going into this game. We had discussed him ad nauseum throughout the playoffs. Like, was he going to be able to show up when they basically made him pass? And in this game, they made him pass, held him under 3 yards per carry. Saquon Barkley had the worst game of his entire season, less than 60 yards on 25 carries. Yet, Jalen Hurts made the plays when it counted most. What did you see from him, Matt, in the Super Bowl?
I thought he was fantastic. I really do. I thought early on, even with the pass interference call, whatever, early in the game, the throw was on point, right? And so he was in a rhythm. He was kind of under control. Just his feet looked great. The timing with which he was throwing looked great. I thought he was incredibly accurate, poised. I thought he used his legs really well too. Like when it was time to take off and go for it, not hang around in that pocket, he did. He was decisive in that manner. And credit to him, man. He played fantastic. I thought the best 2 games of his year were the 2 most important games, the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. And this guy went out there and made the plays he needed to make. He was incredibly efficient. I thought incredibly poised, threw the ball extremely well. He deserved it last night.
Yeah, I thought some really back-breaking opportunities for Jalen Hurts to take advantage of the fact that the rush was getting blocked up by that offensive line. And you said it when he said, you know what? I'm not totally confident in this look here with my receivers. I think I'll just take it down the field. He had some explosive runs. And in the back half of that game, you could really just feel the energy getting taken out of that defense. It is disheartening. I know being an offensive lineman, when you can protect well and your quarterback can get out of dodge and then turn it into an explosive, man, it's like pulling the lever at the casino and seeing 7-7-7. There's no sack, no loss of yardage on the play. We get a first down. Nobody gets hit. That's the perfect play. Jalen Hurts showed up big in the run and the pass last night.
Yeah, I hate that 4th down got called back early on, because all we're doing is talking about the call then, and not the fact that was a 4th and 2. To throw the go ball on a 4th and 2 that early in the game took some cojones. That's when you knew that Jalen Hurts wasn't going to blink in that game. And yeah, it gets called back, and yeah, they have to punt it away. But that's a play that I don't think a lot of quarterbacks would. You could see a quarterback shy away from that in that situation, and I don't think a lot of people would bat an eye about it.
I agree. I think it shows supreme confidence. The best time to throw deep, though, literally is 4th and short,
yes.
Right? It is the premier look for space on the outside to throw that go ball. They're not expecting it. They expect something at the chains or just beyond or a pick route or any of those things, and you go with straight gas on the outside. And he threw it perfect. Like, there was no tension in that throw. It was like they were throwing pat and go on air. And that was really his expression all night on his face, right? It was just unfazed, ready to compete, no fear. I love the way he played. And I think the ultimate compliment you can give to quarterbacks, right, is that in the biggest moments, in their biggest games, they deliver their best performances of the season. And, he did that. He did that in the last 2 games.
Do we see this?
Mike, I want to make sure that, because there's so many people that will talk about the Kansas City Chiefs' ineptitude last night, and they'll talk about the fact that Patrick Mahomes had statistically one of the worst games he's ever played. He was sacked more than he's ever been sacked. He threw interceptions here, there, and another. But at the end of the day, it was the Philadelphia Eagles who showed up and did this, and it was Jalen Hurts. And when I'm looking at these pictures this morning of Jalen Hurts enjoying that victory cigar in the locker room, it really hits home. It was a championship effort from those guys last night. So I got to tip my cap, because I'm a big Mahomes guy, and I always stand on the table for those dudes. But my, oh my, what a masterclass from everybody, including Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl champion now.
Well, all we talked about with the Eagles pretty much all year long from, I guess, like week 5 on was the defense. They were a defense-first football team. But they scored 95 points between the conference championship game and the Super Bowl. Obviously, some of that aided by the defense as well. Do we see this carrying over into next year? Because obviously, I believe Kellen Moore is going to be the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints, so probably going to have a new offensive coordinator. But they don't lose a single piece offensively. They bring everyone back. Everyone is under contract there. And for them to have the success they did these last 2 weeks, which were basically their 2 best offensive outputs of the season, Do we see this carrying into next season, Matt?
Well, I think it is. I think it's always hard when you have coordinator change. We saw that with them, not this season, the season before, right? You have new coordinators come in. It's just not the same. And every team is different. Every year is different. But I do expect them to be right back in the mix, given the players that they have. And I think one of the things we talked about it on this podcast throughout the year when we were talking about the Philadelphia Eagles is, yes, they were a run-first team. Yes, they were a defensive football team. But at some point in the playoffs, they were going to have to throw themselves to a championships. And they did it. And Jalen Hurts did it, right? And so I don't see that changing. I think they're going to be very much the same blueprint next year. They're going to run the football a ton. Saquon Barkley, I fully expect, if he's healthy, to have another monster year behind that offensive line. And we'll probably have the same conversations about Jalen Hurts, probably not going for big numbers or all those things. Can he do it in the playoffs? I don't want to hear it anymore. He can. He did it. He showed it. And so I think the defense continues to be really, really good. I think the numbers for Jalen will probably be similar to what they were this year. And at some point in the playoffs, he's either going to put them on his back in the pass game and they'll win, or they're not going to. But I certainly see them back in the playoffs with basically the same group coming back, even though they'll have a new coordinator.
I'm in 100% agreement with Matt Ryan here, because at the end of the day, there's X's and O's, and then there's Johnny's and Joe's. And while the X's and O's are good on the defensive side of the ball with Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore obviously does a good job. Both sides of the ball have a ton of Johnny's and a ton of Joe's. They're going to be able to show up, get off the bus, and have confidence, that supreme confidence that they showed up in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best dynasties that ever played in the National Football League. And they whooped them out of the stadium. I mean, they took the air out of it immediately. You roll into the next season with that confidence, I'm sure. I've never been of a part of a team like that, but I've been on teams with just better dudes before, and that's a good feeling because the Eagles just have better dudes.
Yeah, and I'll throw one more thing in there too. And this isn't a knock on Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni, or Vic Fangio, but they didn't beat you with their scheme, right? They beat you with their players. And that's why I look at it like they've got a real chance, regardless of who comes in there next year, because of the guys that they have. They can run simple type concepts, and they can do it better than you can. And that is always the most frustrating thing as a player, right? If you get beat by scheme or something like that, you're like, okay. When you just get beat up by players that are better than you, that out-execute you on simple little things, it's incredibly frustrating. And the Eagles do that better than anybody else, and they did that better than the Chiefs last night.